It was incredibly important to Kathryn that we be as authentic as possible also in the casting. The majority of the background actors are real military. I think I counted because I have that kind of brain. I think we achieved about 90%.
I always thought just being ready is the point. They see how prepared we are. No one starts a nuclear war.
So is it true that you think of this as the third in the triptych of The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, sort of connecting them?
Well, they're kind of loosely connected, I would say, by an interest in national security. Recently, I was curious about what would happen if a nuclear ICBM was incoming and targeted North America. What happens in the halls of power? What are the protocols? What's the procedure? And how could it be averted? So I found a wonderful writer, Noah Oppenheim, who is a former journalist who's really a subject matter expert in this space. We had many conversations, incredible ideas, and then he did a ton of research. And a few months later, we had a script, and that's sort of how it started.
I thought the structure of this was ingenious and really works. Was that your idea to do it that way?
It was because I wanted to do it in real time, but real time meant an 18 or 19-minute film, which could be fine, but it also gave us an opportunity to do a deep dive in all the different perspectives, like the man on the ground in the missile defense. What about the White House Situation Room that moves all the information, collates data from around the world and moves it all to the president? And then STRATCOM, that's the nuclear umbrella for the United States. And what's interesting, what was a surprise to me, is the president has sole authority to make this decision. Nobody else can make that decision except him. Noah and I spoke to a former chief of staff and said, okay, so how do you rehearse this? What do how do you do it? He goes, we don't. We just don't have time.
The suspense level in this is incredible, and the way you guys kept it going. So let me ask Kirk Baxter here, the editor, because you had a challenging job to make this move and interesting constantly, even though we're watching the same set of events supposedly happening in different ways.
Yes.
And so how did you do it? What was your mantra here?
No, I mean, I loved the speed that it moved at. There is all this kinetic energy during the race of the clock, but the performance of the actors naturally slow it down for all these sort of frozen moments where the humanity bleeds through. Everything needs to be as real as possible, and everything reacts to that reality. Like a small example, I thought about this while we were driving here, is when Secretary Baker jumps off the roof. There's coverage of that. We could be closer, you could see it clearer, but what we go with is the wide shot only, with it sort of obscured by people in the fore. And did you see that? I'm not quite sure. Did we see that? And then there was a coverage of the aftermath, of which we didn't use, because the reality of the president of like, what was that? And then the next person's at him and it keeps going. And there's no time. That's the sort of the speed part, just the unfairness of the ticking clock. So you build it around to highlight the crazy.
Now, Tracy Letts, great performance, by the way. You are really
amazing.
Thank you.
You are really convincing as this general. And so how did you prepare? How did you work? Because I understand you actually had some real generals there at all times, actually as background players.
Yeah, they were pretty essential to what I was doing. I mean, to be able to turn to them at any time and say, what am I trying to do here? What's the objective? And the answer I kept getting from them was, you actually, because you're a general, you have great latitude in what you're able to do, right? In terms of behavior, you have a lot of latitude. So it was just the ability to step on to this set. Everything was so replete that you could just step onto it and just play the scenes, which was, the beautiful freedom to be able to do that and not feel like you had a greater responsibility other than that. Just play the scenes.
And all the sets are side by side. I'm going to jump out of order here because I want to talk about this extraordinary production design and the idea behind it, Jeremy, to have all these sets working at the same time. So even though he's talking into screens, they're right next door to him, and that's all going on.
Well, we knew really quickly we were going to have to build it all because they're all secure facilities. And then we realized that when the script is it's amazing, but everyone's talking to each other on screen. We're like, how are we going to do this? It's got to be all live. So we had 3 amazing huge stages, and we built practically everything. And every environment was to serve the actors and Kathryn, that when they walk in, they're just free to go anywhere.
Amazing. I'm going to go right next to you there with these two guys, because I know they work closely together, the sound designer, Paul, and the composer, Volker. Your sound work on this is extraordinary. The way it develops throughout the movie, so we think we're hearing something in the first section, we hear it from a different point of view.
Yeah, I would just say there was something intriguing to me to not hear everything perfectly as we go along. There's a lot of sounds in the beginning of the movie, so you might have noticed, and sometimes you miss the dialogue that's in there, but that's intentionally so we can give you that line a little bit later and want you to be a little bit unclear. Just like characters, there's so much information going on there. But then we get to the third act and becomes more the precedents. Just one question, just one answer everybody's waiting for, what is it going to do? And it becomes this human, more emotional story. We're done collecting, data, and we have the luxury of Volker writing stuff that we all loved very early on. So I would work against that, and I sent it back to Volker, and we would work back and forth and try to find the heart of the movie.
Volker, can you talk about that too? Because the silences in your score are just as important as building it.
Yeah, I mean, silence is the best thing. Not because I don't want to work. It's much more. It's much more because I think when there is silence, you can actually ramp up to tension. When you have 3 chapters, you want to ramp up the tension from chapter 1 to chapter 2. Intentionally, we left out the tension at the last chapter when the president sits in the helicopter, because I felt that was the moment where it was the most loneliest moment, where the decision had to be made. And I thought that the shift into emotion is maybe the best to do the aftermath of the film.
And now the casting director, can you talk about your challenges?
Yes, so it was incredibly important to Kathryn that we be as authentic as possible also in the casting. So the majority of the background actors are real military. I think I counted because I have that kind of brain. I think we achieved about 90%. The challenge definitely was the magnitude of it, but I think for me, I broke it out into the vignettes, and we started with the pillar of each. So we started with Idris, we started with Rebecca, Jared Harris, Tracy, and then just built out from there. It's my largest cast. It's 113 principals, plus all the beautiful featured folks of military people we see around them.
The ambiguity of the ending. You really don't, play it out there for us. It's in our minds what really happens, but it leans a certain way.
Well, yeah, I suppose, but you can determine what happens. But that was something Noah and I spoke a lot about, preserving the ambiguity, not having a specific idea of who originated the ICBM. It made it too easy to point a finger and say, oh, that person is to blame, or that country is to blame. And it's it's too easy, and it absolves us of responsibility. And instead, we wanted it to be a reflective moment. Like, you realize that there's over 12,000 nuclear warheads in the world, 9 nuclear countries, only 3 are members of NATO, and it's a very combustible environment we live in. Do we want to live in that world? Yeah. Is basically the question the movie poses.
It's a good question, and we are at time right now, and we did it. We're all still here. Let's thank everybody.
Thank you.